1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is! He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
Here's a list of things that are shaped like tubes I enjoy. Worms. Fruit by the foot before you unroll it. Tubes, just in general, that are big enough for me to fit through, as if I'm going to some sort of like magical place. There's a television show called Fred Petter's Make-Believe World where he crawled through a log that was all hollowed out, and he went from a forest into an area where he interacted with puppets and had a guitar. And I used to dream about that. And so I'm always crawling through tubes that I'm confident I can fit through because I always think that there's a magical world hanging out behind it.
Did you look at this cat tree behind me and go, well, third intro to record today?
Yep. I'm like tubes. Tubes. But it brings up this idea that I took a humanities class in high school. And one aspect of the humanities class was learning about architecture. And I had taken for granted the fact that there's so many things that are involved with architecture that serve a purpose rather than just a design element. Nowadays, we do so many things that aren't meant for structure. They're meant for aesthetic. And back in the day, those two things were one and the same. For example, arches, one of the strongest ways you could create something that had lift and size. And you would think like, oh, it'd be just, if it's a straight line, it's much better. No. It is not as strong. And those are the type of things that just astound me. And the difference between something that's a perfect circle taking, pressure versus something that's box shaped taking pressure, where you've got areas on a box that are much more sensitive than a circle. Mm-hmm. Because a circle maintains a strength the whole way across. I never took geometry, and I wish I had.
Really? It wasn't required?
No, I took algebra, and then I took a class that was a mixture of trigonometry, geometry, and algebra.
Okay.
TGA, I might have been.
So you took some geometry. The class wasn't called geometry.
Right. We never really got in geometry into how many fluid ounces fit inside of this cup, but not as much about learning the shapes, and it was more volume based stuff. If I remember, it's been 15 years. Because one flaw of our school system is I was not required to take math beyond my junior year of high school.
Yeah.
My senior year, I don't think I took a single class my senior year that seemed difficult, with the exception of most people took their second gym credit their junior year. I waited until I was a senior, and then I took dance. And guess what? I was the only guy in that dance class.
Racket sports for me.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Why didn't they have a sport class in high school offered to us that was more like realistic adult sports, like
watching football on TV
or bar games?
Yeah.
Your final is you got to score 10 points in cornhole.
Today you got to carry your laundry down 2 flights, get it done, and then carry it back up 2 flights.
There was a class called Living on Your Own.
I took that class too.
Did you?
Yeah.
So
that was a Mickey, meaning it was considered very easy and simple.
Mickey.
That's what we called them, a Mickey course, because it was like Disney. It was like It was like child's play. It was so easy.
Do you remember anything about that course that was difficult or that surprised you?
No. I loved that course though, because that was the only one that was like, listen, pretty soon you're going to start a bank account. You're going to do all these things. Here's some life skills for that. So it was actually helpful, but it didn't surprise me necessarily.
I wonder if they teach kids how to balance a checkbook. That was part of
They
one of
did.
my classes.
They did it in that class.
Well, even at that time, we were writing checks.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you write maybe a rent check, but I know a lot of rent places that take it automatically out of accounts now.
I guess replace checkbook with budget, right? Like balancing your budget. You can still do all the same budgetary stuff. Yeah, it's just not probably a check ledger sheet.
A check ledger. I would have just called it my check register.
Well, I'm being fancy.
Your check ledger sheet.
Being fancy pants.
Do you have any quilts made out of old shirts?
No.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
People have t-shirt
Oh,
quilts.
yeah. You've got one, right?
I do. And I chose the shirts, and now I look back and I'm like, a couple of these I might have swapped out. Didn't necessarily need to have them.
Meaning you wish they still were as a shirt, or they just weren't a part of that quilt?
Just weren't a part of that quilt.
Do you have other shirts you would swap it out for?
I wouldn't fit into any of those shirts nowadays. Most of them were from high school, and I'm a smidge pudgier than I was in high school.
Me too.
Good.
A lot in common today.
People talk about their freshman 15, their freshman year of college. I had like a freshman 15 for every year after I graduated from high school, leading up to after 10 years, that's 150 pounds. That might be about right. Wow.
Yeah. I definitely have.
I'm lucky to be alive.
I definitely have packed on more than I should be carrying around. I'm definitely carrying around a few bowling balls.
Oh, yeah?
I've heard that before, as people have used that as sort of a visual exercise to help motivate them in weight loss. Is they'll once they've lost the weight of a particular weighted bowling ball, then they'll take that bowling ball and they'll get a bowling ball and they'll put it up on a shelf. And then once they've got a few bowling balls up there, they're like, that's how much weight I was carrying around with me as I was walking around in my old body.
And they'll be like, listen, you said you were going to be out of this apartment by 10:30. It is 11:15.
Also, why are there bottle caps everywhere?
Maybe you and I would lose weight more if we didn't have pillows strewn about the studio that looked like an ice cream sandwich. Maybe. So Facebook knows that I'm overweight. It can tell based on probably
your photos.
Some photos.
The algorithm goes, these pictures are heavy.
The things I like and look at. But I find it hard to go on Facebook sometimes because they're always showing me these amazing recipes for things like spinach gumbo or check out this easy chicken tortellini. And I'll find myself watching them make this dish so quickly. And the last thing I want to do is eat healthy after I watch something like that. And we're describing too many things as creamy nowadays. We're using the word creamy in describing a lot of stuff that's not even food related anymore.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they'll say, until it's a creamy consistency, or what a creamy white that you have on your wall for paint colors. Let's stop using the word creamy so much.
What would you prefer to call ice cream?
Iced lactation. Come on, kids. We're going to stop and get some iced lactation on the way home.
Iced cow milk?
Do you remember a few episodes ago when we had Valerie Coit on?
How could I forget?
And we talked at length about dairy operations.
Pasteurization and yeah.
I was recently re-listening. I listen to our podcast all the time because I'm a very vain person. And it's only embarrassing when another human being gets in my car and they said, are you listening to your own... Yes, I am.
And you're like, so are you now?
Yeah, be like, you're a listener. I'm counting you. But when we were listening to that, I realized to myself, I know so little about farm animals in general. A couple of podcasts, even before this, we were talking about pig genitalia, and I know very little about pigs in general. Do you think that I could cut it on a farm?
Yeah.
Think so?
Oh, I think so, because you're strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd have you doing things that aren't related to animal excretion. So lifting hay bales. I bet you'd be running like a tractor. I could see you doing lots of stuff on a farm. You're a handy guy, JJ. Even though you listen to musicals and you watch a lot of Netflix, like you're also someone who can like build a deck if you need to.
My only training for being on a farm would be farm-related scenes in movies. So big top peewee. There are no hot dog trees. I have found out, though, unfortunately.
Babe, none of the animals actually talk.
Nope.
To you, at least.
Right. And they didn't to the farmer.
I'm just saying in general, though, like at least we know that they don't talk to you or to me because neither of us have heard them.
Sure.
Who knows what they say amongst themselves?
Right.
When there are no humans around.
Son-in-law, anything past the first 20 minutes when they go back to, I believe it's South Dakota.
Yeah. Mice and Men kills a rabbit with his hand.
Yeah. But were they on a farm or a ranch?
I thought it was a farm.
What's the difference between a farm and a ranch? Is one that just grows stuff and the other one just raises animals? That's it?
That is a good question. I think on this podcast, we need to get a farmer and a rancher in here and let the two of them hash it out. I bet there's disagreement. I bet there's something of a hatred between farmers and ranchers.
You want to hear how we're going to circle this thing up real quick?
I am waiting.
Which is a rancher term, circle, yes. Circle the animals. In the musical Oklahoma, and you're just talking about how much I am a fan of musicals, I have not been able to get this out of my head recently. It's during the song, they're at the dance, like the big song. There's a part where like, I'd like to say a word for the cowboys. Oh, you would. Da, 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 da. And so it's about how the farmers and the ranchers, oh, the farmer and the cowman should be friends. It's about how they are different people. And like the farmer likes to put up fences to keep animals out of his crop, but then it makes it hard to drive cattle across the open plains because now you've got fences and everything. And I don't understand, beyond the fact that it's difficult to do one thing or the other, why that's so important.
How does this tie in today's episode?
Because we talked about musicals, and then we talked about ranches, and then we talked about whether or not life is easy, which is a constant theme that we bring in on JJ. Were you not paying attention earlier?
Especially for artists.
And then I like to crawl through tubes. Tucker, what
That's
I'm
right.
saying
I forgot when Matt Master talked about that.
Yes.
That's right.
You're forgetting that what I was talking about is the adventure. The adventure of crawling through a tube and not knowing where the other end leads.
Speaking of not knowing the difference between farmers and ranchers, today our guest is...
No, I actually have a much better way to bring up Punchgut.
Okay.
So that's how Houdini died.
Yes.
Getting punched in the gut.
Yeah.
And as we know, Tucker Lucas is a big fan of magic.
Yeah, sure.
I once walked in and Tucker was crying because he was watching a David Copperfield special where somebody had yelled at David Copperfield, and Tucker had felt that he's being so disrespected. He didn't know how a human being could do that.
David Copperfield is a sensitive artist.
Mm-hmm. He is. He's married to a supermodel too. I don't remember which one.
We're talking about the book, right?
Yeah. The by same guy who wrote Oliver Twist.
Sure.
Yeah.
Shakespeare?
Charles Dickens.
Is that his name?
On the count of three, name a Charles Dickens novel, okay? 1, 2, 3. Tale of Two Cities. Yes.
Of course.
On the count of three, name a character from A Tale of Two Cities. 1, 2, 3.
The cities.
No idea. I know.
The second city.
In Great Expectations, there's a character named Pip.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
I was going to say Oliver, but that's not in Tale of Two Cities.
What if... How come no one's made
like a
DCU, a Dickensian
universe?
Cinematic universe, where all of these people know each other, and they can bring it around. We got a lot of mail, by the way. I should acknowledge this before I get into introducing the guest, about potty mouth, potty pants, and people
came into our PO box.
Yeah, our potty mouth box. A lot of people enjoy the idea until they find out the name.
That's why the name is staying.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I will not give ground on this topic.
You gotta find out who the true fans are.
Yeah,
and if
absolutely.
you missed that, you need to go back to the Jason Jacobson JJ Meets World.
You know, when Queen made Bohemian Rhapsody, they were like, what are you doing? This is like 7-9 minutes long. It can't be that long. But they stuck to their guns, and I'm going to do the same with Potty Mouth, Potty Pants.
Mm-hmm. They're like,
the rich orphan.
Who's ever going to do this? And they're like, listen, we've got these rings that allow us to time travel. And at one point, there's going to be a movie made in the early 90s that everyone thinks is stupid. It'll be a one-trick pony. It's going to be called Wayne's World. But that'll really legitimize us as a group.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Queen was waiting for. They're waiting for Dana Carvey and Mike Myers.
And we just need that. We just need that person out there who's going to bring Potty Mouth, Potty Pants over the top.
Yep.
And introduce it to a new audience.
Now, let's say a little kid knocks on your door and he says, I am Potty Mouth, Potty Pants. And in the future, somebody draws me and lightning hits a piece of paper and I came to life. Could you, but it also, I was hit by lightning again. It sent me back in time. And now I'm at your door and I'm your creation. I sprung from your genius and I don't know where to go, what to do, but you need to feed me and let me stay here until we can figure out how to get me struck by lightning a third time.
I'd have to ask Potty Mouth, Potty Pants, or whoever alleges to be Potty Mouth, Potty Pants. I'd have to ask them some very personal questions that only I and Potty Mouth would know. And that way I would know if they're legit. And at that point, if they're legit, I'm going to feed that boy and I'm going to find a way to get him to the top of a mountain with a lightning rod and get him back to the future from whence he came. Otherwise, he's going to live here and then the future won't unroll that way. Where it sounds like if he gets drawn, that means that the idea takes off and maybe my descendants will get some ka-ching out of it. So I don't know if I want to change that future at all.
You
know?
really want to Schultz that thing, huh?
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
I mean,
basically, Potty Mouth, Potty Pants is basically just a Dickensian Charlie Brown.
Right.
Really. Except he has a potty mouth. He goes to the bathroom in his pants. He's wealthy and has no parents.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
beyond that, he's basically Charlie Brown.
And that's how we tie in today's guest, Punchgut.
Yeah.
Because he's constantly pitching me ideas for things he thinks would be great art.
And it matches the alliteration.
Yeah. Oh, so many layers, like a delicious onion. So, Punchgut. When you suggested Punchgut as a guest, my eyes got super wide and excited because this is a person I have respected for a very long time, and he's in the arts community, but he's not in the type of arts community where you think of like, oh, hello, welcome to the gallery.
Yeah.
He's in the arts community where I think of something, I'm going to create it, and I'm going to kick ass and take names.
If he has an ego, you probably wouldn't know it.
No.
When you hang out with him. You really wouldn't. And he's not about what is art, what is high art, what is low art. He doesn't care. He's more interested in just that sort of fountain of creativity that we all have the capacity for.
He has got some pretty amazing stuff to say about creating posters for band and concert series. He's got some amazing things to tell you about mediums that he's used over the years, about how art has become part of his children's life without any influence from him directly at all. Just an insanely interesting podcast. If you are somebody who's going to go to college for art and your parents don't understand, have them listen to Punchgut, and if they still don't come around, don't come back for holidays. Those people don't get you. They don't understand you, and there's no point because they never will.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Luckily, my parents are down with it, so I don't have to cut them out of my life.
I think my dad didn't really understand theater, but he was supportive. And I think he would be very impressed with what I've done with theater at this point because I melded theater and business together, which is a language that he did speak.
How long have you been running line benders for now?
Oh, gosh, 12 years?
God, has it been that long?
Yeah, a long time.
Goodness.
Yeah. We have to get all the owners of line benders together in a room and do a podcast.
That would be a lot of fun.
Because it is it's a very cool story in the fact that things like that don't exist. And that's why we're lucky. Fargo embraces art. Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo. There are a lot of people here who, even though the concept of something like an improv show or a group like Theater B or an art installation like that, what Punchgut does, they don't necessarily want to do that themselves, but they are pretty great about supporting stuff.
Yeah.
And people have a lot of opportunity to try things. Could we be better? You betcha. Should we fund some of it with some public money? Oh, yes, absolutely. But for the time being, we can all just enjoy that there are people like Punchgut who will go out there and create. And just because there are hurdles in his way doesn't mean he's going to stop.
And send this guy some business because he is a talented dude and he's in demand. So like if you want him to design something for you, it's the kind of thing where you better do it a few months ahead of time because he's so in demand. It's kind of hard to get his time.
I've been trying to think of something recently to get him to do, and I think I'd like him to draw me as a Calvin and Hobbes like character. Wouldn't that be a neat thing?
Who would be your Hobbes, do you think?
You?
Really? I'd
Yeah.
be Hobbes? Sweet. Works for me.
It'd be neat to see me short and you tall.
I'd
That's
love
what I
to see
think.
that one day.
Well, listen, as we work on that, you guys sit back and enjoy our conversation with Punchgut. Take notes. That's what he does.
JJ Meets World.
Punchgut. This
Hello,
this is probably one of the episodes I've been most looking forward to.
Oh, pressure.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of pressure. There's going to be a math test at the end. You're going to hate this.
That's horrible.
So first and foremost, let's tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I am an artist, and I don't sleep much, mostly because of that. Let's see, what do I do? I mean, what people mostly remember is the concert posters I did a few years ago. Those were kind of all over. And logo designs, I kind of do everything. I mean, my perception of an artist is, I mean, the term artist brings up so many kind of shitty terms. I think like people just pondering and I feel this way, blah, 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 blah. I ain't that artist. I like to do logo designs. My business approach for artists is have a deep toolbox. So when someone needs something that's art, which includes logos, an illustration, a magazine illustration, anything, I'm their dude.
Well, there you go. I always think when you say artist to someone who's not in a world that is not in a world that focuses on creativity very often, the first thing that goes, oh, starving artist.
Yes.
Or you're a beatnik living in some Soho apartment and surviving off of ramen so that you can buy paint. And that's not what it's like.
No, I mean, there are those, and it'd be awesome to fall into a really cool stereotype like that. But really, what I've found with most artists are we struggle with anxiety. We struggle with depression if we're not creative enough, overanalyzing, overthinking everything. That's what I've seen is really more of the stereotypical artist, right?
Those artists who have to keep stuff balled up because they took a 9-to-5 job doing something they hate and they don't spend time creating. Those are the ones who it's like blowing a water balloon up, and the bigger and bigger it gets, the more you're like, oh, is it going to explode at one of these moments?
Exactly.
Because those people who have the ability to create and the need to create, it's like if you gave birth, right, and you're a mom and your breasts fill with milk, it becomes painful if you don't expunge it.
Right, dudes? That's just like that, right, guys?
Yes.
I just saw the movie Tully last night, and it deals with that in length. So that's my metaphor.
I like that. That's good. Yeah.
Good. I like it.
Just a slight drip.
Is that what your life is? You've got a slight drip that's going on?
I've talked, there's plenty of artists. I mean, that's the way it works, right? I mean, we don't all just say, I am prepared for this big, huge job of being an artist. I mean, really, it's something you have to make time for to live healthy and think healthy, you know? Define healthy. If you don't, you have to give sleep up to create. I mean, you guys take time out of your day to do podcasts. This is something you enjoy to do, but it's making that time to create and giving you that outlet. I mean,
Tucker didn't have anything else going on,
Oh.
so it's no big deal for him. But
I'm
yeah,
actually
I've
paying
taken a lot
JJ
of
for
time.
him to be here.
are these mics even on?
Yeah. By the way, before you leave, we got these boxes we need moved. You burnt.
Like that.
So what's the medium that you're working in right now? Has it always been the same?
It jumps all over the place. Right now, I finished up. I'm trying to remember what I got burning right now. I just finished up a t-shirt design for Drecker Brewery in downtown Fargo. I'm also just finished up a huge, massive collage last night for Hodo Lounge in downtown that's going up on one of their walls, which has always been a goal of mine to get a piece on there, up in their place, because they've had so much great art locally
They
up on the wall. Yeah.
Isn't it neat when there's a place that embraces local art? They're not just going down to IKEA and picking up
Right.
some stuff so that they can cover up their brick. They're
It's not
looking for
Applebee's.
Yeah. It's not. It doesn't have the Fargo South High Bruins sweatshirt that somebody bought on a whim stapled to the wall.
Yeah, and there seems to be a lot more local. I mean, you see that being embraced more, these days as businesses grow. I mean, Dempsey's in downtown Fargo, they've always had a great hold on the bars, the art scene downtown. They hire artists. I've got a few pieces in there. Worst has always been great to me. I mean, they've let me just kind of do whatever I want to in there.
So when somebody approaches you and says, "You know what? I've got some wall."
Mm-hmm.
Do they give you an idea of what they're looking for, or do they give you full freedom to look at that wall and go like, "Oh, okay, this is something I've been dreaming about lately"?
It all depends on the client, and I'm comfortable working with either one of them. I understand what I've always said about art with changes, with that part where it kind of goes more into the commercial art part where you're working directly for a client that's going to have that is they're going to stare at that piece of art way fucking longer than the artist is.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So they should have a little bit of embrace of it. Some of them want you to just be you and do whatever you want to. And I'm fine with either way. I mean, like with the Drecker labels that I've been doing that for their beer brewery, some of them, they have imagery already kind of developed in their mind because they've looked at these beer labels forever. And now we're redoing them and bringing them to life.
That's
So
pretty
they'll give
slick.
kind of an idea of what to do. And what I'll do on that is do a little rough sketch, send it to them and see what they think if I'm on the right path. And sometimes I'm way the fuck off the path, And then I read sketch, and some of them I've done a couple sketch, some of them I've nailed them right off the bat. So
Is it hard when someone comes back and says, this isn't really what we were thinking. Could you do something more like this?
no, not really. I mean, I just understand it's part of the deal, and I've always looked at art for when it's commercial is that they really have to look at that more than me. I mean, those guys they're going to have their hands on those beer cans every day. They're brewing up a new batch. They're going to look at all those labels all over again. But I did tell them from the beginning when they first asked me to do labels for them, I told them I'm going to hide dicks in them.
Yeah. And how's that been going?
Oh, I haven't put any dicks in it.
That you'll admit to.
I just like the thought of people looking for dicks every time the artwork shows up.
It's like the Little Mermaid poster.
Exactly. It's that. Where it's in there. As long as they're looking for it, my job's achieved.
Hidden imagery is sometimes the best. Here's an idea. You can take this one to the bank. So when it comes to art for me, I love it. I appreciate it, but I just can't create it. What I see in my mind can never come through in my fingertips, no matter how hard I try. And we have a mutual friend in Scotch, and Scotch has always told me, he goes, "Oh man, you just gotta sit down and it's practice makes perfect, or practice makes, just the trial and error of it. Eventually, you'll figure out style." I can't draw. I'm one of those guys who, if I'm creating a collage, will put too much. It'll be perfect, and I'll go, "Oh, this is right." But maybe if I just put one more thing and then another thing, and then end up with garbage afterwards. So I guess you can say I don't know when to say when. But here's an idea for a beer can for you.
Okay.
The can is an outline of like a hand.
All right.
So like that shows you where to grip it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it is.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's you put stuff around it, but it's clear that that's where the hand goes.
The hand goes here.
Right. And so maybe you could put, the thumb goes above the label or below the label so you can still show that off.
Yeah.
And then the fingers wrap around it.
You could. Why couldn't you draw that? You can draw that.
I cannot. I can give you a million ideas. I'm really great at like sitting and spitballing, but I'll never be the guy who can make that happen because I'll be like, fuck, I forgot to put a pinky in there. And so
you forgot a whole finger.
Yeah. And it'll come up in the notes process, and I'll be so embarrassed that I forgot the pinky. And I have both of my pinkies.
You're used to Mickey Mouse hands.
I am. And the Simpsons, I could draw Simpsons hands. It's inevitable when I draw a hand, I will draw a big thumb, and then it comes in and I start doing the fingers. And before I know it, I haven't left enough space at the top of the hand. And so the pinky is always going way off to the side. So it looks like I've got two thumbs. So like when I draw a hand, it looks like like a bird.
I know a lot of comic book illustrators really hate dealing with feet. Especially so like if you look at like Rob Liefeld and his illustrations in the early 90s, most of his characters were standing with like smoke like billowing below their knees because he hated drawing feet. And when he would draw feet, it'd be like a little triangle and it always looked really crappy. Feet are something that I can never draw very easily. Yeah.
I don't like drawing hands either. I mean, I always leave one finger out usually. I don't know why that is. And I think about that when I draw that. I'm like, why am I leaving a finger out? But you see it all the time.
That could be like your great. That's how you could identify a Punchgut piece immediately. Be like, look, there's no fucking pinky on that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a punch. This is an original Punchgut. There's no pinky.
And dude feet, gross.
Yeah.
I don't want to draw some dude's old sweaty flip flops. No, I don't want to do
Maybe
that.
you move the pinky down to the feet.
Oh yeah, that's
There you
right.
go.
Make
Four
a
fingers but 6 toes.
Yeah,
make a
pinky
foot
feet.
even grosser. That's a perfect idea.
So tell me about the concert poster series that you mentioned.
Well, the concert posters, I've always been a fan of the old hippie concert posters. And, it was one of those things where I kept saying, I'd like to do concert posters. I'd like to do concert posters. And I finally just said, fuck it, I'm going to do some concert posters. But that was technically in a different time where concert posters were it was good timing. I didn't wait on purpose for good timing. It just happened that way. I got in some really cool Art of Modern Rock, which was the concert poster Bible thing, and a couple other ones. But
What posters of yours made it in there?
I can't even remember. I think G Love, which was one of the first posters I did, was in there, but I can't remember all of them. But I just remember getting a call from the guy that wrote the book, because I had the original hippie book that had all the cool Doors and Led Zeppelin and Grateful Dead posters, which are fucking amazing. And he called me, and I was like, kind of cried like a little, But it was, and back then though, you could do posters, and when a band would come to town, you'd just go, here's some posters, they're screen printed, they're signed and numbered. And they were like, holy shit, even if you didn't meet the band, you'd give it to their management or whatever, and everything was cool. And you could sell them later. But, as the concert poster industry grew, it became a monetary item for them and became merchandise. So when you had to do concert posters, you'd have to go through all these hoops and whistles, and someone would approve the art, check for dicks on the art and all this stuff. You know what I mean?
There's not enough dicks. There's too many dicks. Why are all the dicks yellow?
But it would have to go through a process, and it just got to be too much work for a break-even process, because you aren't making a ton of money off of doing concert posters. You're just not.
Some bands do like town-specific ones too. So like Ween, every town they go to, they've got a poster that was designed from an artist, usually from that area. And it's for the town. So there's a Moorhead one.
Yep.
There was a St. Paul one. And they're selling like $50 for a print, I want to say, maybe more.
Yep. So, and I think that's cool when a band embraces, goes through and finds an allotment of artists through the nationwide, and they have those people do their posters. That's great. I love that. But there's not a ton of bands that are doing that anymore. And then I still get the passion to do one every once in a while, but it's more of a time thing too. It's like if I have a spot open up, I'd rather do an original piece just for myself and see what happens. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
I really wanted to do a Flaming Lips one, but I just didn't have the time.
Yeah. I can understand where you're coming from on that once you have to start getting approval and you've got to talk to Marcy and billing and stuff like that, it kind of takes some of the fun out of it, doesn't it? Out of that creation process. And
Yeah. Well, and you have to, part of it too is, I mean, it's your time, right? I mean, is our time not valuable? You know, we put time into it. It's not like I'm just sticking Comic Sans on there. I did a huge drawing and did all this stuff, and it still has to go through an intern, a management, a band, if it ever even gets to the band. That's a lot of time for a break-even process. It's a horrible business practice.
Did you just
for an artist? I'll admit it. It's my bad planning. It's not their bad planning.
Did you just throw some shade at Comic Sans?
I did.
As a font
I
type?
threw that right up there.
Well, are you not writing a syllabus for an 8th grade class?
No,
or...
not yet. But yeah, that's true. That is used a lot for that, isn't it?
If you had to use either Comic Sans or Papyrus font in all of your posters going forward, which if you had to pick one?
Oh, I think I'd have to go with Papyrus. I think.
Oh,
I don't know.
So everyone would look at your stuff and be like, "Oh, is this for Avatar? Is this for the Avatar sequel that no one wanted? That we're all going to
Is
get?"
this for a yoga class?
No. It's for a soap. It's a homemade soap. So you had mentioned screen printing, like so you do screen printing for some of these posters. That is a fun process that I think everybody of a certain generation did, and then it just became less and less and less common for people to work with it outside of giant. I know that t-shirt companies have giant machines now where they do it versus the old day where someone would get what is like an old nylon stocking and you'd cut through it and you'd have your little stretch boards. So do you like working with screen printing?
I do sometimes. It does get tedious though. I'm not gonna lie. For me, I've stared at that imagery a long time already, building it. And then to stare at it through a screen printing process sounds super tedious. I think I drink too many monsters, so I'm too hyper. I want to move on to the next thing. And that's always been a problem with me. Let's move on, but and slow down and just take in a project and go on.
Do you keep, like when you screen print posters, do you keep a copy for yourself? Do you have like an ultimate file folder somewhere that's got a million different projects you've worked on over the years? Or when you're done with something, do you put it out into the world and it's the world's job now to look on it and you're already working on the next project?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I do have copies of a lot of my stuff, mostly because some of them haven't sold, but I'm not gonna bullshit and say that they're all gone. But I do like some of the art prints that I've done. I did a limited edition. I do limited edition run. I collect art too. So when an artist comes out with something new that I love and I buy it and I get it and I know it's an edition of 50 prints, to me, I'm like, I got one of those fucking 50, right? That's one of mine. And if they come out with a second edition, I'm like, that's fucking shady. I don't like that.
That is,
I know it says second edition on it. I get all that fancy stuff, but that bums me out a little bit.
I got burned on a guy who did a piece of John Candy art, and he said, I'm only going to make 30 of these. So I was like, well, I got to buy that right away. And I paid a pretty penny for it. And then all of a sudden, he sold out of all 30 almost immediately. And so he said, not that he's going to do a second edition of this because it's screen printed, but he uploaded a digital file that anyone could download and print on their own. And so I thought, well, that kind of takes the fun of this away. That kind of, even though, like you said, I've got it. It's got the number 8 and the -30 on it, so I know I've got print 8 of 30, and it's awesome, and I'll appreciate it. But when I walk in, Tucker could print out the same thing and put up on his wall, and unless you were really looking for it, you wouldn't notice it. So have you ever done a second run of something you said is going to be limited to this?
Boy, I don't think I have. I haven't.
It's got to be tough, right?
I've done some fine art. Well, I mean, define fine art, but I've done some bigger pieces where I've done this new process where I make a huge collage and then kind of change the imagery and put it on these huge boards and do paint behind it. So every one of them's different.
Cool.
But I've used the same big kind of collage image. That's probably the closest I've come.
Do you know who Candace Bergen is?
Murphy Brown.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's the one who played Murphy Brown. So she has a deal right now where if you own a designer purse, Coach, Kate Spade, Marc Jacobs, you can send the purse to her with $1,000 and a picture of your pet, and she will paint a picture of your pet on the side of this purse and then donate the $1,000 to like the ASPCA. And she's not what I would call a photorealistic artist. It's a lot of impression what she does for it. So if you have a schnauzer, it might look more like just a blob of paint on a red background, but she's painting over a designer purse, which to me is an interesting statement to make about that, and then to turn around and give that money to charity. I think that is the type of art where even if it doesn't look like my dog, if I want a painting of my dog that looks like my dog, I'm not going to go to fucking Murphy Brown, right? I'm just not. But I want her to paint on this purse for me because I think that that's awesome. And that is something that is very unique. And I will never attempt to paint on a purse because, you know, who wants a JJ painted purse when you can get a Murphy Brown purse? Candace Bergen.
Good for Candace. Shaking down the system. She's working, right?
Yeah. And just on the news that they're going to reboot Murphy Brown next year too with the original cast.
I mean, maybe she's a Photoshop wizard. Maybe she just paints and puts those on there, sends you a picture on Instagram, and then she sells the purse and takes the cash. Maybe it's a huge Murphy Brown shakedown. That's got a nice ring.
Murphy Brown Shakedown is an awesome band name. Possibly the title of this podcast episode now. The Murphy Brown Shakedown is pretty great.
We'll tag her in this. She's pretty active on Twitter, so we can send this to her. So tell me about like an odd request you've had over the years where someone comes in and says, I would like you to deck out my wheelchair, or could you design me a toilet that looks like my ex-husband?
I mean, God, my memory's kind of fried, but there was one I just did for someone just sent me anniversary illustration to do where they screwed up on when they started dating, they sent a weird emoji accident to each other, and they've progressed so far in their relationship that they asked me if I would do a rendition of those two emojis. I get weird requests like that. I love it.
That's awesome.
Just different weird things. I mean, but it keeps you. I mean, the one part that we all do is we go through the same practices, right? I mean, you get in comfortable mode and you do the same steps, right? This is how I work, and done. But when you get weird challenges like that, it helps you get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And for me, it's good because it just makes you expand a little bit. You know, there isn't every day I would, the icons were that fucking octopus emoji and a maple leaf. So it was making those two things intertwine. And I can't even really remember what I drew, but it was all a pencil sketch. But there was some sort of battle and shit flying around. But that's how, I mean, it's good to get out of your comfort zone.
Did you ever do collaborative art? Do you ever work with other people on a single piece?
Yep. I try to do that as much as often. There's some local artists that I'm in the works of collaborating with. And that's part of the process. When I started to do concert posters, I was in with a group of guys out of Minneapolis called Squad 19. And that's how we worked, was purely collaborative. And it was super healthy because I would do a drawing and I would email it to another artist. And then it was whatever they did was you just shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? And there's a weird empowering moment of just letting someone else take over, do their thing, and then the file would come back to you. You could twist and turn, add some stuff, give points of interest to doing this thing maybe. and I think that's super healthy. I mean, and the other part that was healthy is I was working with some like an amazing artist. So it was Adam Turman from Minneapolis, DeWitt, which is one of my favorite illustrators. Steve from Squad 19, he was another great. There's just great artists.
Is that what you did the Ween poster through?
Yep, I did the Ween poster through him, and there was a lot of other ones. Steve's been posting stuff on Instagram, and there's been some that I just forgot, because I would just do the main illustration. There was this one we did for the Melvins. I just drew a clown that was like tripping acid, and he was pulling his hair. It was like the bozo hair, on the sides, and he was pulling his hair down like he was in mid deep trip going to see the Devils. And I just sent that black and white illustration to him, and then he morphed it into the next level of acid trip. Love it.
Do you ever find when you create something and you look at it and you're like, oh, this is awesome, and someone walks up and goes, oh, hey, this looks like blank, and they pull up some image on their phone that has just a vague similar, like it's just another clown, and you go, what's the point? What's the point
of what them saying that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just part of people in general, right? And sometimes
it's a bad part of people.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And, maybe I always say that that's just part of, it might be part of just people being awkward. Not everyone communicates a little different, right? And some people just blurt shit out.
I'm in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign where our dungeon master will be explaining something, and I'll go, oh, like out of Legend of Zelda when the blah, 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 blah happens. And you always get this, yeah, I guess. Just this dissatisfied, okay. And I know that he's not copying and he's not trying to use it, but I'm trying to think in my head. And since I've got something that's vaguely close to it, I'll draw an illusion that these things are similar so that it's easier for me to visualize. But I'm taking away from his imagination and crushing his soul just a little bit every single time I say that.
He's got that pregnant mom boob that's just building up. He's gonna stick one of those dice in your fucking eye. That's what he's gonna do.
Meanwhile, I'm the guy who's got the breast pump, and I'm like, "Hey guys, look at my cheek," and I'm rather than allowing him to get his precious milk out of his
You're taking that
bosom.
away from him.
Thank you for bringing that back. Can we make that part of the imagery for this this as well too? That'd be great. So what's a medium that you just like, I just don't enjoy working with this? It's either frustrating or it's just unwieldy, maybe.
The one that I've always pushed out on is doing murals directly on walls, and I've seen people do it very successfully. I do it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never had, to me, there's no takebacks. I've built it up to a point in my brain where it's like, that's Mount Everest to me.
So
that's pretty much what Adam Turman does now, right?
Yeah, and Adam does it beautifully. Adam's got it down to a science.
Yeah.
But I don't have the tools. You see these guys, they rent the lifters and all that stuff, or the time to really do it. And to me, it's the size is overwhelming too. So what I do is, one thing that I've done is I get these big, huge boards and still do it in my garage. But like there's one at Frank's Lounge way out south where I did a whole booth wrap where I did one of my huge collages, and it goes all the way to the ceiling and it wraps a whole booth. But what I did was I built the walls in my office, in my garage, and then painted them, and then they pieced them together, which is way more comfortable to me. And it gives a whole weird, different kind of really retro vintage style to it, which I love to do on those big ones. So, and that's one of those things that I started it. Someone asked me to do it, and I'm like, fuck yeah, I do that all the time. And then when I came back, I'm like, I got to figure out how to do this. You know what I mean? Sometimes that's good stuff to do. It kind of changed, added a whole new kind of weapon of the things I can do.
I always think the fun is on the other side of the word yes, but also the stress and the anxiety All of those things live on the other side of the word yes. And it's always a little interesting when you open that door to find out what you're going to walk into.
Right.
I do a lot of building, and so when someone says, "Oh, I want to do this custom cutting board," oh yeah, oh no sweat, I can do that. Yeah, that sounds great. And then it's 3:00 in the morning, and I'm sitting in my wood shop, going like, "God damn it! Why did I say yes to this?" But then you end up with something beautiful afterwards, and then you go to a garage sale and you see it there, and you're like. You fucking assholes. Thanks a lot, guys.
Did that really happen?
Yeah.
Did
twice.
it really? Oh, no.
And I said, well, what's the deal? And they're like, well, we got 4 cutting boards for our wedding. And so we just got rid of this one. I said, I made this one. I didn't go to Pier 1 Imports and pick this thing up. This is a one of a kind. And they're like, well, yeah, we can tell. And that's where I go like, oh, fine.
Wasn't even.
Fine. Most of them are even. It's mainly the problem with I don't put little rubber knobs on the bottom.
Okay, yeah.
Because I always think like, well, what if you're going to put it somewhere near heat? Or what if you want to put this in your dishwasher and one of the knobs goes and now it's clanking because it's missing a knob?
Is your cutting board just too even? Try JJ's uneven cutting boards.
I hate knobs. You won't find any knobs in my work. You've hired Punchgut for some stuff, right?
Twice. He the Moonbase Maria logo was designed by him, and then he also designed the poster for First Mo. I think those are just the only two.
Oh yeah, the First Mo one.
I think those are the only two I've ever.
I drew Matt's ass.
Matt's ass. Yeah. Matt McGregor's ass.
Matt McGregor's hot ass. Yeah, I drew it in denim too.
Yeah.
So if someone when Tucker says, "Listen, I need a poster for this movie First Mo," he sends the movie to you, and then you just
I can't even remember how that went. I did watch the movie.
That one was, I think we sat down and I just said, "Hey, you tell me, man. I don't know what this should be. I know that Matt's shorts should be in it somehow, but I think that's all I really knew." And then you did a drawing, just a pencil drawing, and sent it to me and was like, "How's this?" And I was like, "Yep." And then you made that one. The Moonbase Maria logo, I just gave you some imagery that I liked, but I didn't know if it would match anything. But it was more like telling you why the business was named that and stuff like that. But anytime that I personally work with a designer, I am such a huge fan of good design that if I want to hire a designer to do something, like I hired Adam Weedman to do the JJ Meets World logo, I'm pretty much hiring them for what they're going to do, which is show me something that I didn't know I wanted. Right. So like, it can be hard for me to picture in my head, we had no idea for the JJ Meets World logo as far as what needed to be in that. I just told him it needs to show JJ's personality, and he came up with something. So do you just get springboards like that, or how often are you getting very, very specific detailed instructions?
And that's a perfect example. I mean, it goes either way. Some people really have something nailed out in their mind, and you have to develop those ideas and present it in something that works. And other ones, it's just wide open. Do what you think. Here's a couple things. I try to direct people to say, show me kind of a couple things that you like, or go through my website and see if there's some imagery that really appeals to you. Try to get something to start off of. But if it's someone that I know, like Tucker, I know kind of what he's into, so I'll just roll with things. I know if I just put a sweet pair of shorts on the cover and Matt's ass, he's gonna bite all over that. Yeah. He's gonna bite all over it.
It's great too because he wrote First Mo in the jeans, so like the tag said first, and in like the stitching on the back pockets is what I believe.
Oh, that's right.
Is what I believe says Mo.
Yep,
as well. Yeah, that's one thing with concert posters that I've noticed. There are a lot of concert posters out there where the text is almost unreadable, but almost intentionally so, because they're doing some sort of wacky thing with it. What is the general view in your world about making a poster like that, where you actually have to walk right up to it and like try to read it?
I don't know what the general view is, but I mean, for me, it's a part of the concert poster is advertisement, right? And if you can't read it, that advertisement's not working. Yeah. And has those rules changed through today's through internet and all that stuff. I mean, what really promotes the poster? I mean, those Wilco posters that you saw, did you see those up anywhere in town, or did you just see them on the merch table?
Wilco or Ween?
Ween, I'm sorry.
It just on the merch table, yeah.
So they aren't really advertising shit.
That's true. Okay, yeah, there's
That's
the piece
just
of art.
merch, but you know it's for Ween and it's going to be there. So it's not technically up anywhere, right?
Yeah, no,
It's not advertising. So in that case, I think it's fine. You do whatever, but people do like to see that it's a Ween poster.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. That can kind of go either way. I mean, I've done stuff that's not super legible, but when you know what it is, once you get it, it's cool. There's lots of old hippie posters that I love where I can't read shit on it, and I'm fine with that.
I think about like comparing Ween posters with, say, White Stripes posters. Like you can tell a White Stripes poster from across the room because it's going to be red and white and black, very stark. You know, it might not even say White Stripes on it, but you'll go, oh, I know what that is.
Right.
But Ween, every poster that they do is like almost completely different. They have hundreds of posters because they've been doing this for a long time. And you look at their posters. I love the poster that you worked on, which was the word Ween inside of an arm, right?
Yep. And that
then-
was a collaborative one where I worked with Squad 19, where we did what we talked about, where we started the imagery and sent it, and it developed into that.
What part of that poster did you do?
Oh, I can't remember if I found the medical hand somewhere. Boy, I can't even remember, because what we would do is we'd do 5 sketches or 3 or 4 sketches, and we would bounce them back and forth. And then I can't remember who would do which part, but it would just slowly morph into this poster, and we would change things. But I loved working like that. But that was when it comes down to remembering the lettering and the color choices. Ugh.
Did you ever hear from a band and have them reach back and be like, "Hey, man, this was friggin' awesome"?
Sometimes, yeah. They've been super nice. Some of them you just never hear anything. One of the last ones I did was Girl Talk.
Oh yeah,
and he was super nice and loved what he did, and I think he even texted me and said thanks. He's a nice guy.
I scored an amazing Hold Steady poster from a show they did at the Fargo Theater, where their manager brought like 4 of the same posters. It was a huge poster, and they said, we were supposed to ship these to you guys, but we forgot, and we're not going to sell them on the table, so you guys can just have them. Do you remember these posters? They're like a giant snowman.
I don't remember.
And the Hold Steady on it is very, very small. And it was just one of the coolest things I'd ever seen in my life. And I remember the Fargo Theater took at least one of them and put them up like on a silent auction.
Okay.
And it raised a ton of money because people like that limited quality to it. And this is something where you can really tell that an artist, the artist took what they experienced at this Hold Steady show and put it on a poster. And it's so cool and it's so awesome. I don't have a wall big enough to hang it up anymore.
That big.
It's huge. Oh, it's huge.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really awesome. It cost me an entire semester of college to frame. It was intense.
I did one for Sharon Jones when she came through town, and she made sure, which was really rare. I don't know if I got that from one other band once, but she made sure to sign a copy. Sharon Jones did, and made sure that it got back to me. And she wrote "Love Sharon Jones" on it, and which she's passed away from from breast cancer since then.
Gone way too soon.
One of the little gems that I still hold on to in my flat file full of shit, just piles of stuff. But I still pull out that Sharon Jones one. Yeah, she's solid.
Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings was the very last act I ever saw at 10K before they folded that festival.
Oh.
They played the field stage, the closing night, and I had never seen them before, and I was mesmerized. Did you ever listen to any Sharon Jones?
No.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Gone way too soon.
Yeah, she'd kick off her shoes and throw some shit down.
Oh, she was like full on, she had an attitude and a voice like you can't believe. Oh, they're great shows. Yeah, I think you can listen to her for sure on Spotify and other streaming services. So
And they came out with a really great documentary afterwards that was kind of a hard watch. It's brutal, of her being diagnosed and progressing, and where that ended up.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a spoiler.
Yeah, we already kind of did.
Oh, that was a little dark. I'm sorry, but I miss her so much.
Thanos just, snapped his finger.
What? Okay, so I'm gonna name some stuff, and you tell me if you've done a piece with them. Okay. Charcoal.
Yeah, I've sketched with charcoal. Yep.
Okay. Watercolor.
I have done that too. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a seascape or.
I think the last time I remember doing something with watercolor was a picture of Shannon Hoon from Blind Melon.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. I did. I still love Blind Melon.
Me too.
We went to, when he died, my brother and I went to his grave. We drove.
Really?
We took my pickup truck and they just put his hippie carcass in the ground, and we drove. It was somewhere in Indiana. It was one of those states that started with that I, but we drove. We're going to go see Shannon Hoon. And that was back in the days where you didn't have directions on your map, right? On your phone. So we had like a MapQuest. We had like
a giant printed out thing.
Yeah. Where it would go through, take right, take left. And then you would print out the returning trip back in reverse, because there's no way you're going through 15 papers to figure out how to get back. But we drove and we made it there. It was a hairy trip.
Did you do a gravestone rubbing? That's a popular thing that people do, right?
Before the headstone was even there. They just had, when we got there.
So it's just like a little marker?
Well, it was in this really weird, it was in a super small town. And they didn't have his gravestone in. There was a piece of plywood on the ground, and there was some dirt and a bunch of cigarette butts and empty wine bottles. I didn't look underneath the plywood, but it was that. I don't know what the process was. I know they did eventually get a headstone, but back then it was just a plywood, and I didn't even expect that we'd get there. I mean, my brother was driving. I fell asleep for a little while, and when I fell asleep, we were on an interstate. And when I woke up, my brother Nate was driving, and it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. It was dirty time of night. And I woke up and we were on gravel, and there was cornfields on each side, and there was no light. And I didn't want to be that shitty brother where I'm like, where are we going? Where the God, what are you doing, ding dong? And I'm like, you all right? You know where you're going? He's like, yeah, I got this. And when he said that, I could see a turn sign coming up on the fucking gravel, and he never slowed down. So I just held on, and we went off the road, and there happened to be a dip on the other side. We landed, and my brother's so chill and cool on everything, way cooler than me, the younger brother. And he just looks over and he's like, I think you should drive. And we drove for like half hour, and poof, there was the graveyard. So he was right the whole time. He knew right where he was doing. We pulled up and the sun came up. It was weird. It was a cool moment though.
Oh, wow.
Was it you or your brother who went by Punchgut first?
It was me first, but we did, what we did was we did studio crawl together, and I think that confused some people.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, we did that because we didn't get to hang out that much anymore. You know, when you get families and all that stuff, it's hard for brothers just to have a couple days to hang out and be mean to each other. And that's what we did for studio crawl, when we would just hang out and bullshit with people. But a lot of people thought he was Punchgut, whatever.
Where does the name come from?
The name comes from where it started out as Punchgut Studio, but nobody remembered. No one said, hey, you're Matt. Nobody remembered that. They'd all say, you're that Punchgut guy. And I don't give a shit what people call me, as long as they remember and I stay on somebody's radar.
I think it's kind of cool, actually, to have like your artist name, the name you go by, or as you are known by. I think that's pretty cool. It's like being Batman, but you're an artist.
Yeah. And I think some of it just had to do with hiding. You know what I mean? I could put this weird imagery out there, and people wouldn't say, "Oof, that Met guy's fucked up." They would say that. They would say that Punchgut's questionable. I'm going to take him off the babysitting list. But they would, you know what I mean? I think that was part of like anxiety and stress of putting yourself out there. I had something to kind of hide behind when I first started. Now I don't care because I'm old and withered and bitter. But you know, it doesn't matter. I've already established that there's stuff going on sometimes in my head.
Here's another art piece you could make. It's a refrigerator with a note pinned to it that says babysitter's list. And you're maybe the only name on there that's crossed off.
And then they just decide to stay home.
Yep, exactly.
But there are other people that they still haven't crossed off, like Dr. Kevorkian. Or...
Yeah, I'm thinking like a Jeffrey Dahmer could be on there, or
I shouldn't. I actually I do pretty good with kids.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm actually teaching a kids class at the Plains this summer.
Really?
And
What class?
how to draw monsters. Yeah, it'll be fun because you can't draw monsters wrong. See,
No.
that's what you should do, JJ. You
Draw a
can't
monster?
Draw monsters.
Here, I'll draw one real quick.
If it's missing
See?
its pinky, people are like, "Oh, look at what he did." JJ went deep. He took that pinky off.
See, I'd focus so much and put blood on his teeth and be like, he bit his pinky off.
Yeah, see, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
And there's no wrongs really with monsters. And who doesn't like drawing monsters?
Yeah,
It's
there's
easy.
truth there.
And there's no right or wrong to it. It's just going to be free form and let the kids kind of draw. And I'll have to figure out what we're going to do for 2 days. But
Spiky teeth, yay or nay on a monster?
it all depends on the monster, right?
Okay.
It's one of those child-eating ones that needs spiky teeth.
What if one of those kids draws a picture of, I don't know, like Bill Cosby? You'd be like, you nailed it.
Yes.
Well done.
Yeah, shine up the gold star. You're getting it. Bonk.
We gotta get you in the next art riot.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm a big fan of going to art shows too.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing, especially when somebody works with some kind of a theme.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are huge pockets of the population who've never been to a gallery, and that's a real shame. Or they think of it and they think of like, an art gallery is a place where you go to just look at something quickly and move to something else. And what I really like about a show is being able to like talk to the artist who created stuff too, and to say like, oh my God, you love Toucan Sam too? I can see all of this cereal related artwork
Right.
that you've been working on for 4 years. How often are you doing a show of some kind?
It kind of depends. For a while, the last couple of years, we started a pop-up gallery show called Wandering Ghost, and we've done that a couple times during the year where we invite artists and let them do whatever they want to do, and it just pops up and we sell the pieces and do it from there. It's very relaxed, and that was one of the things that was on my goal list to do, is to do relaxed art shows, because sometimes they can be intimidating. I think they're intimidating. There's been a few where I've been in where I've gone to the shows and I've been like, this is uncomfortable as shit. How do people walk in here without feeling intimidated a little bit? And I think that's one of the hard parts that art has to get over. It has to be more embracing and let people walk in and feel inviting instead of,
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Does that explain a lot? That
Yeah.
sound where it's intimidating.
That sound is, in fact, we're going to turn that into a ringtone or an app. Like, is your, in fact, we were talking about creating an app called the Ass app.
Yeah.
And so maybe the Ass app can be art for social secondary. I don't know what the second S is. I could have 9 S's for all I care.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the like, do you walk into an art gallery and go,
Yeah.
And it's got a head wobble too.
For sure, yes. And that's something I've been trying to battle a little bit to get through and just let artists have an opportunity to do what they want to do, and ones that don't always get exposure. Because really the hard part with shows is if you're a new artist and you don't have a huge, gap portfolio of pieces just laying around to show, how do you get into a place and have a show? So that's what we've been doing with kind of the pop-up gallery, is letting young kids or new kids that are just done with college or just going to college, or ones that are working as bartenders and doing their other shit, the night vampires that are up doing stuff late at night because they have to do it. And that's what we've done with the pop-up show called Wandering Ghost.
Do you think art stores would make more money if they were just open, let's say, from 11 o'clock to 5 a.m.?
Oh, that's a good idea. I've never thought about that.
How come there's no overnight art stores?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Wow, I've never thought about that. Yeah, you're onto something there.
I'm the business side of things. I pitched a gallery show at one point that was met with a lot of people going, even members of the art community even gave me a weird thing.
Oh, fun.
And what I wanted to do was get a ton of shadow boxes. And I wanted to study when people do like butterflies, like preserve butterflies. And so use that same technique, but use notable Fargo Moorhead citizens' underpants. And it's not a weird
Mayor
thing.
Mahoney's.
Right. And the thing is you would contact Mayor Tim Mahoney and say, this is what I'm doing. It could be a real pair of your underpants, or give me a pair that you feel represents who you are, right? So maybe his underpants have a little tiny flood vest that go around them, right?
Right.
Or maybe there's one, maybe when I contact Punchgut, you actually don't give me a pair. Like, you're always freeballing it. And so it's just 3 pins inside of this thing connected to nothing.
Yep.
And so I thought that this would be hilarious. And I was like, this could be a great way to have a gallery show that supports raising money and awareness for like testicular cancer. Right. And everyone said the same thing to me, which is underpants are disgusting. Why would you do that? You're a pervert. And I was like, it's not that though. It's not. Oh, come on, guys. Can't you see it? Can't you get behind it?
I'm on board.
Yeah.
Are you?
I'm on board.
I think you should keep telling people that.
Think so?
Well, just
I might call you and ask for some help. Be like,
just
okay.
I mean, not anyone specifically. Just tell random people that, like the people that are working at Casey's.
Be like, I'll have a double cheeseburger. What would you think? Would you ever pay $5 to see the mayor's underpants?
So, but I would pay $5 if it was like a matchup with the name. So, like, if all the underpants were on the wall, and then there was a list of names over on the right, and you had to fill out a sheet that said which underpants belonged to which person. I did that once at the MCOMs for comic books, like which comic strip was what name or something like that, and I won, and I got a free comic book out of it. So maybe
how old were you?
4th grade, I want to say. I don't know how old 4th grade is.
Older than 3rd grade.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
If you can say anything about 4th graders, it's this. They are older than 3rd graders in general.
Yep.
But you can't say that they're younger than 5th graders because maybe a kid like skipped a grade.
Well, you can't necessarily say that they're older than 3rd graders.
You sure can. That's a you don't
What if
start,
someone
you
got
don't
held
start
back?
skipping grades.
But someone gets held back,
Yeah, but they're still older than a 3rd grader.
Well, but no, if someone from your class got
saying
held back
in 3rd grade,
that would be a 3rd grader that is your age. If you're a 4th
then it
grader,
depends on whether or not where their age fell in the year. Like, were they an old 3rd grader or a young 3rd grader? Because it still have the potential of being older.
That's true. That's very true.
I mean, I've thought about this a lot. This is another failed gallery show I had going for a while called "Are You Older Than a 3rd Grader?" And it had a matchup element like Tucker's talking about. Which, like, which of these is the appropriate number of bus tokens if you have to visit your dad this weekend?
Some awkward pictures of kids getting their pictures taken, not knowing why Tucker's there. Why are you taking pictures?
Do you
of me?
remember? Did the South school system do? What was it? Healthy Heart. There was like a superhero character.
Yeah.
Who I'm trying to remember his name though.
In 3rd grade.
Yep.
And there was like a female detective character who
There's a
figures
whole
out
cast of characters, but that's the only thing I can really remember from 3rd grade. And Mr. Wild was my teacher.
Do you remember Story Lords?
Yes.
Yeah, you can watch all of those on YouTube. Do you ever see Story
What's
Lords?
Story Lords?
It's a kid who is contacted by a mystical shaman from the world of stories and reading who said, I need your help because an evil villain is trying to take over my world. And coincidentally, whatever he'd learn about for reading, like TH makes a noise, would be what the problem is going on in that other world that week.
Didn't they wear gloves
okay.
that would like transport them or something like that?
You put on gloves, and then the villain was like this big burly guy, and a little dude drove a motorcycle. He would ride in a sidecar, and I remember, spoiler alert, the very last episode fucking was trippy as hell because his teacher was the mystical shaman. She like grabbed her face and pulled it away, and it was a mask, and it's the shaman, and you go, holy shit.
Yeah.
I did not see that one coming.
Don't stop believing. What was the show with the princess who was kept in a castle by a witch, and the witch would make her make books for her?
Yeah.
So like there was like a machine in this castle, and she would if they wanted a book that was about Monster Energy drink and a cat and a podcast, you know, she put those three things in it, and then a book would come out, and then she'd read the book, and like the witch was like, you will stay here and make books for me for a certain amount of time.
It looked a lot like the HR Puffin stuff, Witchy Poo type thing, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
We grew up in a time when infotainment really hadn't hit the peak that it is today. They make some really good stuff for kids today that is incredibly entertaining, and they get a lot of knowledge out of it. The production value, at least when the stuff I was watching, which is about a decade older than the time I was going to school, was just crap. But it made a big impression on me.
When your kids went through like art classes and stuff at school, and was there any of that like, well, my dad does it this way?
No, they don't want anything to do with me. They just don't want that
as
attention.
an artist, or in general, because that sounded really sad.
Pretty much in general. No, they don't want that. They don't want to have that highlight or stress to worry about, really. My son Levi is a really good artist.
He's really good,
and he's better than I was at that age. But he doesn't want anything to. He wants to build his own thing on his own. He doesn't want any association with Punchgut and that dirty depression road that I've been on. So he's going on. He's going on his own thing, and he's doing good. So
good.
He likes creating. He goes into the garage. We take different shifts on the garage, and he sits in there and paints and does his thing.
Nice.
But, you know, they've watched, but I've seen it, and I don't take any credit for his creativity, because I remember when he was creating shit, he would just go and burst when he was a toddler. He would just start drawing, and he would jump around to different things. So that's nothing that I'd put into him.
That's amazing, isn't it? Just to watch
weird.
Somebody blossom with their creativity. And
I wonder how much of that is the fact, though, that your kids have been surrounded by art like their whole lives, I'm sure. Because I remember being at your house, and like there's art there, and there's it's just everywhere. So I wonder how much being just surrounded with that much exposure to different kinds of art like helps prep them to become more artistic.
Well, just being comfortable, you know, they're comfortable with, I mean, my daughter, she does drawing. She does it different ways, but it's just being comfortable to explore and do drawings and fuck around and do whatever. There's no right or wrongs. There's enough right and wrongs and bullshit that we deal with all day long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And with art, there shouldn't be, if JJ doesn't want to draw a pinky, he shouldn't have to draw a fucking pinky. You know what I mean?
Good.
It doesn't matter. There's no right or
In
wrong.
this house, we draw pinkies on our characters.
that's it, Dad.
I hate you.
I'm never going to be an artist. I want to study accountancy. That's art with numbers.
I want to be a school administrator.
What do you think the opposite of art is?
The opposite of art.
Yeah.
Boy, I don't know. I think math. I think it's math. Just because
Because there's only one way to do it. and it's kind of universal, and there's no
there's no gleaming bullshit. It's math is raw. This is it. You got here. You do this to get to the end point. And I've also found out a lot of artists are terrible at math. So I think that's the nemesis of it. I'm horrible at it. My kids quit asking for math help on homework, I think around 4th or 5th grade.
Which is when long division starts.
Oh, dude, that's gotten way harder. Or at least maybe I've gotten dumber. Everything's gotten rustier. You don't use multiplication tables every single day.
Oh, God, no.
At least I don't.
Or ever, really. If you're not just calculating it with a device.
Have the math teachers of the world finally come to the point of where the old excuse was, well, you're not going to have a calculator everywhere you go. That's bullshit now. Not only do I have a calculator, but I have access to the internet 99% of the time I'm anywhere. So, sorry, teachers.
I have access to better lectures on the subject than you're probably giving me right now.
Right? Yeah, that's got to be hard.
So, what's the justification for kids having to learn it longhand now? What do you think they're doing?
I think it's just the process of how they get to the end point, but I don't know, how do you justify that when you have a huge computer in your pocket, right?
I know. I could say we're teaching you critical thinking skills.
That's nice.
You learn how to do something so that you can see how there's a beginning, middle, and end to problem solve. That's it. It's problem solving.
Sure.
This particular problem is a math problem, but we're teaching you problem solving skills, finding patterns, things like that.
But Punchgut, can you talk about? I feel like this is connected. As when you were talking about math being the opposite of art, and first, as I was thinking of it in my head, it was like, well, in math, there's an answer and you find it by following rules, right? Versus like if you want a picture of a dog, well, what's the answer to that? It's whatever kind of painting you come up with. But the end result, you're still kind of discovering it, right? You're finding what the end result is going to be. You're just not using necessarily logical progression to get to that end result. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is the difference between what you see in your head and what ends up being on the page in front of you. Are they usually drastically different for you as an accomplished artist? Because I know anytime I try to make anything, be it a movie, a podcast, a drawing, it's never even remotely like I first pictured it in my head. I can only discover what it's going to look like once I'm done with it.
Is that a bad thing though?
I'm not saying. I'm just wondering if you
no, but I'm asking you, if it's different than how you originally pictured it, do you see that as a failure in your mind, or
not anymore? I used to see it as a failure, especially in movie making. But since then, as I've gotten older and chilled out, I've discovered that I was actually just saying this the other day in play rehearsal to our actors. I was saying, when you're acting, discovery trumps decision every time. So if you decide you're going to act this one scene in this certain manner, you're sort of setting yourself up to fail. What you should do is run through that scene and discover the way that you think that it should be done, and go through a collaboration process, and don't just decide in your head what it's going to be, because no matter what you decide, it's not going to be that. It's going to be something else.
Right.
It might be close, but so I've become so much happier ever since I've been able to just give myself over to a process and go, well, I like this idea for a movie or for a podcast, but so I'm going to take that as my jumping off point, but let's be surprised by what comes out at the other end.
Right. And I think that's the same way with art. You have to accept, usually the first idea on things is just the groundworks, right? So everything that's added to that on top of it is just a layer. I like the layers apart. The layers of shit is what makes things interesting. If you just come in raw and say, this is what it has to be, there's a lot of that learning process where things are changed and morphed. Tucker, you're creative, and the ideas that you have add to that, right? It's kind of it's like sat in a fucking slow cooker for a couple more days and got a little bit of brine and stink to it.
Sure.
And it's grown from that instead of just a flat piece of paper or an idea.
Yeah. Or
it has to be this. And that's that regulatory thinking where we're like, it has to be this. There's different, just because things have morphed off of that and it's changed doesn't make it right or wrong. And I think that's a lot more thinking that with art, even with monsters, things should change, and it should be more open-ended. We don't have to stay so focused on our first thoughts, because a lot of times when you go with that, it's not the best thing. But it's a starting point, and starting points are important.
I like to think of like a sculptor using, marble or wood or whatever. And instead of going, all right, I'm going to turn this into the Statue of David, it's the Statue of David is inside there somewhere. And I'm going to go cut out everything that isn't that. I'm going to go find it. It's on the inside of it there. I like thinking of it in terms of that better than going, oh, I'm going to make this new thing, because now all the pressure's on you.
Right.
But if you're just going with it and saying, I'm going to find out what bubbles to the top, I like that a lot more. It's less stressful, and it's more pleasing once you're done.
And it allows for mistakes and changes through the whole process, instead of why is this a huge statue of David's penis?
Why isn't it a huge statue of David's penis?
They didn't do a very good job hiding the penis in this one.
It's like JJ always draws people without a pinky. Mm-hmm. He just puts it in a different area.
Yeah, I just moved the pinky. So that's how you can identify something that's JJ related.
You move the pinky.
Pinky's somewhere else, somewhere you don't expect it.
Surprise pinky. Surprise pinky.
Here's another idea I have for a show.
I like these.
See, you like these?
Yeah, I do.
Do you think I've struck oil on any of them?
I think you just keep going.
Okay.
You make sure to write all these down, though.
So you take famous pieces of art, and then you create the other side of it. So you take like the Screamer, right? Mm-hmm. So you paint if you took that image, but we're taking it from the behind, right? And so what does Mona Lisa look like if you're looking at the back of her head instead of towards her face?
I see, yeah.
And so you could even add the fact that you could add the artist working on it at the time if you really want to go
That's
deep.
a really cool idea.
See, that's a good theme show.
Wouldn't that be fun?
I like that. See, that's good.
I think about the apple face guy. I don't remember the name of that piece, but what if he had like an orange hanging out on the back of his head? You don't fucking know, right?
You don't know.
Yeah, or a banana.
And there's no right or wrong, right?
There isn't.
New business opportunity for you guys, where we're just making slight modifications to pre-existing public domain images.
I think that there is a certain aspect of storytelling, and I'm going to include like a painting as part of storytelling, because you are telling some kind of a story with it, that people like a deep dive into. I read a series of books by a guy named Gregory Maguire, which focused on the Wicked Witch of the West and her upbringing and how she became the Wicked Witch of the West. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's another side of the Wizard of Oz tale I had never seen before, and it makes you empathize with her. And so by the time it gets to the story that everyone knows about the Wizard of Oz, it's got a different weight to it, because you're like, geez, this girl she just kind of blows in out of nowhere. She doesn't know about the political aspects of what's going on in Oz, and then she fucking murders this woman who wants her dead sister's shoes back. Weird, right? And so I think people like that kind of thing. We see more and more people who are creating things that further flesh out worlds and stories that we think we all know, full stop. And so that to me can be a part of art, is allowing you to, how does this make me feel? And here's my response back to it. Like, have you ever gone to a show and you immediately, like, when you leave, you're like, I gotta go, because this is making me think of so many things. And it's not like you're gonna go and create the Punchgut version of what you just saw, but it gives you such a feeling that you've just got to do something about it immediately.
Sure. Well, and the other thing that I've done too is I take notes on things, because one thing that we always think, this idea is so fucking good, I'm going to remember this forever, and then I'll be like, oh, there's a 2-for-1 sale at Burger Time, I'm going to stop. And then that idea is gone. At least for me, that's how it works.
It's a 2-for-1 sale at Burger Time.
And I never remember that shit.
Their beer cheeseburgers back.
Yeah.
I love that thing, by the way.
And this great idea is gone. So I've tried to take more notes of, this is what I'm this might work. And just as long as I have a reference point, so when I do have time, I can go do that stuff. Because I forget stuff all the time, and it's ridiculous to think you're going to remember every good idea. But the real thing you should do is on the Wizard of Oz is really do a thing on the real darkness is what Dorothy went through to do Wizard of Oz. She was on, they fed her speed, smoked cigarettes, and everyone on the cast hated her except the Wicked Witch, which is the beauty of that whole story. And that's why I love watching Wizard of Oz now, because I know the true fucking darkness behind that movie.
Years ago, I met one of the surviving Munchkins.
Yeah.
And I've met a few celebrities who my heart has broken for them a little bit. So we took a picture with this guy. He is one of the Lollipop Guild. And before he takes a picture, his handler goes, here, and shoves a giant lollipop prop into his hand. And so every picture of him is him holding this giant lollipop. And I think, well, he doesn't have to hold a lollipop on my account. I just want to have this image to remember this moment in history. And I met Drew Carey in Las Vegas years ago, and we had a maybe like 15, 20-minute long conversation with him. And I was like, can I just get a quick photo to show all the folks back home? He goes, oh, sure. And he's had corrective surgery, so he doesn't need glasses. But when he takes a picture with someone, he has to pull out those horn-rimmed glasses because that's what the people want to see. They want to see the Drew Carey show, Drew Carey. And I've met a couple other people who have that stigma of having something that's so iconic for them that it's hard to.
So could you tell when that manager pulled out that lollipop and plopped it in front of him that it was just like, like this fucking thing again? You could just see the tear stains rolling down the lollipop all down. Just like, fuck. I've had this lollipop for 10 years. Stick this in your fucking ass. Goddamn manager.
This is my ball and chain. You know what it looked like, actually? It looked like a reverse of a kid at a candy store. You've never seen a kid be like, no lollipops, please, no lollipops. And mom and dad are trying to take it away from them in real life, but now mom and dad is shoving this in his gob.
That makes me really uncomfortable. And was it a real lollipop, or was it one like a fake one that was made out of paper that said "Follow me on IG"? Here's the little man on Twitter or whatever the fuck it was, something like that. Was it like that?
It was not. That's a missed opportunity. It is a total. In fact, it was a shittily made. They had gone and purchased a wooden dowel and a foam circle, and then they had just made swirls on the circle with tempera paint.
Yeah. Hashtag we represent.
Right. It's almost like you needn't have bothered.
Oh, that makes me really sad. He's got to pull that. Was it kind of beaten up too?
Oh, yeah. It had seen better days. And it's large enough where you have to imagine that is what he's forced to have as his carry-on. Instead of
it's big.
It's big. I mean, it's a good size so that when you're taking a picture with a group of people, that sticks out, right?
And makes him look smaller.
And it does make him look way smaller. Plus, they had a table in front of us, and they made him kind of crawl up on the table a little bit. And immediately I said, I regret this. I feel like this is incredibly demeaning to this gentleman. And he just entertained me with stories and all of this neat stuff from the making of The Wizard of Oz. And now it's like, put on the show. And I felt bad immediately. His name was Jerry.
You should have broken that fucking sucker. You should have grabbed it and just.
This is for you, Jerry.
Actually,
You're free.
2 years later, I'm at the Mall of America. And they've got the last surviving Munchkin, this guy. And I walked by this open air area, and guess what he still was having to pose with? That same fucking prop.
No.
Yeah.
So it just been passed. Ugh,
so I should. Why didn't I destroy that? Why didn't I do my part in that?
Don't know, JJ. It's a good question.
If I destroyed it, it'd probably come out of his cut of the event.
Or you could have gotten 3 wishes. You fucked up.
Few free.
Either way, you would have done good for him.
and that is where we end this week's podcast. Is JJ's ability to have 3 wishes, but he didn't take it because he wanted a photo. He doesn't even know what hard drive is on anymore. Punchgut, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys.
This has been a great conversation, and if people want to see more of your stuff, where can they find you?
This is where I hold up my styrofoam sucker,
Yep.
punchgut.com, or I'm on Facebook as Punchgut, but I don't go to Facebook that much. It's usually Instagram, just under Punchgut.
Any shows coming up or any Wandering Ghost plans for the future?
We'll have one in fall with a whole new ragtag of artists, hopefully. And but I've got plenty of pieces, new beer cans coming out, new illustrations coming out. That'll be all over town, and that's that.
Rockin'.
Sweet. Well, thanks again for being here.
Thank you, guys.
JJ Meets World.
Well, like a DMX album, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. For more info, including how you can help us keep the lights on by donating to our Patreon, visit the website, folks. It's jjmeetsworld.com, or hit us up on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites kids are using these days. Production note, there are a couple other JJ Meets Worlds out there, but we have surpassed them by hundreds of likes. So just look for the one that has the most attention, and that's the one that we're running. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Mr. Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you are interested in contacting JJ to complain, praise, or book him for a comedy show, go to www.linebenders.com. People have worked so hard on creating Ziploc bags that hold food fresh for so long, but here's what I want to create: a Ziploc bag that has the sturdiness of a Ziploc bag, but is edible, so that I can put stuff like a bunch of burrito ingredients into it and then eat it afterwards. So really what I'm saying is that Tupperware you can eat.